talking about Germany and how the Nazi Party becomes popular. You read, or hopefully have read, uh, the German, excuse me, the Nazi ideals and beliefs that they got from Hitler, and of course that he got from other places. And we had mentioned that Hitler, remember, he runs for president, he doesn't win, but he gets appointed chancellor, which is a very high position in the government, similar to president. And he had to work with the president, Paul von Hindenburg. And remember, the Reichstag building caught on fire, and Hitler blames communists for it. They arrest a communist, they quickly arrest somebody. And remember, Hitler had issued what's called the fire decree, where he said, hey, we have to temporarily take away freedoms so that we can round up all these communist terrorists and make sure that that they don't have the ability to gather together freely. They can't print up all their newspapers that will advocate for overthrow of the government or things like that. And so the nation was scared of terrorism, and so they allow Hitler to do this. Nobody really objects. Right? Hitler goes a step further, though. Okay, remember, the Reichstag building caught on fire. Everybody's scared of communists who are trying to start a radical revolution just like they did in the Soviet Union. And so Hitler says, hey, Reichstag, I know your building burned down, but you guys are in charge of making all the laws, and I want you to pass a special law called the Enabling Act. Right? And the Reichstag people say, well, what is this law, the Enabling Act? What do you want it to do? And Hitler said, the Enabling Act will give me, Adolf Hitler, all lawmaking power in the nation. I want you to let me make the laws. And he said, don't worry, it's just temporary. He says, look, sometimes democracies and a lawmaking body like you guys, you take too long, and we need somebody who can act quickly. So just give me lawmaking power, and I promise that I will take care of everything, and I'll be able to act very quickly. Right? Well, the Reichstag, they actually passed this law, the Enabling Act. And they do it in large part because Hitler and the Nazis intimidate them into doing it. Now remember, we talked about the Nazis had a lot of elected officials in the Reichstag. They got a lot of representation. But they couldn't win votes just based on that. They had about 30 to 35% of the people in the Reichstag. So to make sure that Hitler gets the votes to pass this law, he turns to intimidation. Okay? And he had two main groups that helped him intimidate. Hitler has little henchmen. And one group is known as the SA. That's a big, long German word right there that I will not even try to pronounce. But the word itself means, you're going to love this, stormtrooper. Right? No, Star Wars did not think of stormtroopers first. Right? The SA were known by wearing their brown jackets and brown shirts, much like this, with the little swastika armband, so that you could see precisely who they were. And the SA, as they're familiarly known, or the brown shirts, basically what they were was like a private army for Hitler and the Nazis. These are the people that were, I guess you could call them people, members of the party, who could be relied on to intimidate or be violent. They would get into fights with people just for the sake of getting into fights. They were a bunch of hired thugs, in a sense. Members of the party who liked to fight. And Hitler would be like, you know what? These are our enemies. You should beat them up. Right? And it was a big deal. And, remember, the Nazi party itself was getting popular. And if you walked down the street and you were wearing the outfit of the SA, then, you could, people thought that was kind of respectable. You're one of the tough guys in the Nazi party. Okay? And Hitler uses these brown shirts to intimidate other people. The brown shirts, many of them show up at the Reichstag when they have their vote on the Enabling Act. Right? The SA is not the only group that the Nazi party has that becomes kind of a military operation. The Nazis have another group called the SS, the Schutzstaffel. Right? And they're not known by their brown shirts, they're known by their black shirts or their black jackets. And you can see that up here, the on the hat, you see a skull. And they take their job a little more seriously. The SA, in case you're wondering, that phrase means protective squadron. And the SS had multiple jobs. One of them was they were in charge of Hitler's personal security. Okay, the SS was in charge of Hitler's personal security. Later on, the SS will also be responsible for operating and creating the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. The SS and the SA are two groups that help. They're within the Nazi Party, and these are people that are willing to be violent. Now, the SS is a little more intense because to be a member of the SS, you had to be racially pure, you had to go through special military training, and they also heavily indoctrinated people with Nazi beliefs. So they kind of brainwashed you to believe in the ideology of an Aryan race, a master race. We don't want any Jewish blood in here. The SS was supposed to be the purest form of the Aryan race. And this is another, once again, being a member of the SS for a while is considered to be very respectable. Right? People thought you were a somebody. Now, the Reichstag passes the Enabling Act, and Hitler has all lawmaking authority, but he's not really fully in charge yet, okay? And this is only in Hitler's first year in office, which is kind of bizarre in itself. So remember, he's the chancellor, and the chancellor takes care of all the problems and issues at home, like domestic stuff. But it's the president who handles the army and foreign policy. And remember, Paul von Hindenburg was the president. So, Hitler can't just do what he wants or take over other countries or anything like that. All right? However, fortunately for Hitler and the Nazis, Paul von Hindenburg was getting up in his years, and a year into his presidency, Paul von Hindenburg just dies. Right? And there's nothing foul about it. He was just old. All right? So, it's not like the Nazis had him offed or anything like that. And when Paul von Hindenburg dies, there's an opening for president. And here is what's bizarre. You would think that they would replace the president, but no, Hitler says, yeah, we're not going to replace the president anymore. Hitler's like, I'm going to be both chancellor and the president. And Hitler gives himself a new title as well. He refers to himself as the Führer, which means the leader. Right? And once Hitler now, he's got control of the German military. He's got his own private armies with the SA and the SS. He makes all the laws in Germany. And once he is in charge of Nazi Germany, it only takes him a year when he's in office as chancellor to do all this. He says, you know what? It's time that we start rebuilding Germany. And he says, we're going to get rid of the Treaty of Versailles. And he starts doing things he's not supposed to do, including rebuilding the military. All right? Now, Hitler will talk about tomorrow what he does once he becomes in charge of Germany. And you're going to find out that people find reasons to like Hitler. All right? I know it sounds bizarre, but we'll get to that tomorrow. You've got an assignment to complete for today, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.